This is doing good. Okay, cool. I mean, hey, look, without further ado, let's just get into it, shall we? Um,
Yes.
okay, cool. So, thanks for joining me, Miles. Let's see, for today, let me just pull up my question bank. We'll do we'll do these two problems probably. Okay, well, once again, welcome to the mock interview. Um, Session's going to be about an hour long. Usually of these things, I'm not sure if you've done much interviewing before, but let me know if you have. But we're going to be doing. Usually they open up with some like introductions and such. We're going to be skipping that today, so we'll go straight to the problem. We're going to target about 45 minutes or so of coding time, and then after that we'll have about 10, 15 minutes or so of feedback, questions, etc., or anything you might want to bring up. How's that sound?
That's good.
Okay, cool. All right, so is Python your preferred language?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so the first problem that we're gonna be tackling today is about multiplying numbers. Okay, but it's not that simple. So I would like you to write me a function which takes in two strings. And by the way, you're free to take notes here, like in the editor. Yeah. So a function takes in two strings, but the strings are numbers, right? And they're going to be valid numbers. And you are to return a string which is a result of multiplying the two numbers.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Hmm. Wait, so are there any restrictions on what the numbers can be? Like, is it an int?
Nope, no restrictions,
Okay.
but they're valid numbers.
Hmm. So would the return type be a string still? And then
Yes,
just okay.
that's right. Yeah.
Um. Hmm. So what do I want to do here? I guess. Do you have any hints for me?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that we can kind of look at here is, the reason the numbers are given as strings in this case is because the numbers are too big to necessarily fit. Right now in Python, there's no restriction for the size of numbers, but in most languages there are. And for the sake of the problem, we're going to assume that we need to process this string a bit at a time.
Okay.
Okay. Um,
So is this saying like C++ style where it would be like like showing that it's a long but that it's unsigned?
Uh, no. So it would still be a number. So for example, let's
Okay.
assume that we could have like a number like let's say four, like just say 40. I mean, obviously this is a small
40.
number, right? But it's a valid number. And so what we're not allowed to do is we're not allowed to go, like int string one. We were assuming that this operation would cause issues, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
so let's say the language or the system cannot process the entire string at one time. It cannot encode it at one time. Okay. What I'm also
Okay.
going to tell you here, just to make things a bit simpler, is that the numbers I'm going to restrict them now to be only integers. So we'll make that restriction for now.
Okay, for now. Um, so I'm gonna make a result and I guess my concern is the signs of the integers. So dealing with that first.
Okay.
Um, so that's gonna be if string 0 or not, string 1 0 equals this. Oh, I'm gonna loop through string 1
Okay.
and then
What's the multiplication algorithm you're thinking of right now?
I'm not sure.
Okay. We can start with just a regular, right? The regular multiplication, like, doing it on paper by hand,
Yeah.
right? If you have 40, multiplying by, let's do it easier. Let's do 12 and 23 or 34, right? In this case, you multiply the 4 times 12, right?
Yeah.
So it equals 4 times 12. And then you do 3 times 12, 12, right? But this is a tens place, so this is times 10. So in this case, it's like 30 times 12, right? So 10 times. We could do like 3 times 10. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I guess we assume it's string 1 is 12 here. So if I want to string 2 and then we're gonna have a place. So decimal place starts with a multiplier of 1. Um, so first, so we do j or res 0. And then you want to plus equals j, which would be our 4 here, times we kind of just want the integer for string 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but you said we shouldn't do this.
Yeah, we're not allowed to cast a value to a built-in type in that case.
Okay, so first we'll build it. Let's say call this name 1, and then so it'll start off with the, or I guess I'll do in reverse as well.
Okay, so hold on a second. So what are we doing here?
I'm trying to build an int with the value of string 1 that string 1 represents. So then we can have this like 12 value here. So then I can go through string 2 and do this algorithm with the whatever this 12 is.
Okay. I see where you're coming from. The string 1 cannot fit in an integer, right? Like this is our restriction here in this case.
Oh, okay.
This is why it's passed in as a string. It's on the heap.
Okay.
What we actually need to do here is we need to look at, so we had there was a start where you process the numbers digit by digit, right? So you have, in this case, you started with digit 4, that's your j. And then you look at, for digit 4, look at all the digits in string 1.
Yeah.
And then you need to store that result somewhere. So your processor, I think, was on the right track, but you still need to think about where you're going to store that result of 4 times 12.
So we almost need like need to store the result for each digit. So I'd almost want like my n is the length string 2, and then beginning with the 4. times equals I times decimal place. I'll move this.
Okay.
So this, we want the 4 times 1 times 10. So we'd want to go through this in reverse instead, so that we can just increase by 10 for each one.
Okay.
So start it off at 1, because it'd be 4 times 2. And this won't be times equals. This will be plus equals. So our digit starts off as 4, and then I'm going to go through 12 in reverse, so starting at 2, and digit plus equals I, which would be 2 times decimal place, which is starts off at 1. Then after each iteration, I need to update my decimal place. Let's say it times equals 10. So I go to 1 to 10 to 100. So after I have that result, I need to store this. Wait, after I have this result, I'll have whatever my digit is. But this might run over. Well, I guess I'll just be adding them all up afterwards. So results of J equals digit. Wait, this, why is it mad at me?
You're using default dict as a type.
Oh. Nice.
Also because digit is a string. I mean, yeah.
Is it int? And
It's
it
a
wants
string.
this. Oh, it's a string. Okay, so let me go through this again. Guess I don't need. And so I stored my results, and at the start I have my residual, or my return is 0. I'm looping through string 2 in reverse. So that would be the 34, starting with the 4.
Yep.
And then I'm going through 12 in reverse, so that's 4 times 2, digit plus equals. Oh. J. That makes sense. It was wrong. Oh. Okay, so we're gonna get the digit into I. So then we can add digit 2 times decimal place to the digit, and then move the decimal place up. So next one would be 1. Then we do 4 times 1. Okay, and then store that result for the integer. For the string of J, 2 digit. Does that make sense? Not really. Or I guess I would just loop through again once more and then add all the results. But why don't I just do that? Wait, you mentioned we needed to store each of the results. Why did you mention that?
I mean, you don't need to store necessarily each of the results, but you do need to have the result somewhere. So
Okay.
you decide how. I mean, you decide where you want to put it.
Plus equals digit. Um, guess my only concern now is like negative integers. Um, let me make sure this makes sense first. So going through string 2 in reverse, start off each time with a decimal place of 1 because we start at the first digit, the 4 times 2. Then I convert the j, which would be like the 4, to an integer. That makes sense. And then I go through string 1 in reverse as well, so that we can start with the decimal place at 1. And then I convert that to an integer as well. And then, wait, why am I doing this? Digit plus equals digit 2. No. Times equals. Times 3, 4 times 2 times 1. I don't know what that was doing. So just say times equals. And then we move to the tens place, and then it would go 4 times 1, so it'd be, or 4 times 10, so it'd be 40 plus so 48. And then, yeah, okay. How'd this get down here? But we want to return a string as well. Try running it.
Oh, we don't need to run that. That's not a big deal.
Oh,
Yeah, cool. Okay. So you mentioned negative numbers.
yeah.
What's the consideration there?
So if these are properly formatted, like the inputs are valid,
Yeah.
then we would want to consider where wherever string 2 or string 1, wherever their first index is, we would want to make sure to check if those are the negative sign. And if they are, then how do I want to do this? So if this was negative, this was negative. I almost kind of want to just check these separately. And
Yeah,
then
you should
just
definitely
do
do
the
that.
algorithm normally. Output sign. So like remove this. But I need to make sure that this only goes till 1. Or wait, no. I want to make sure I just ignore it in the loop. Because it's not guaranteed to be there. So this will be string 1 of 0 equals symbol So I guess the best way is just to say they don't equal negative and string 2 does not equal negative. Oh. Because we know if they both are, oh, I guess I have to do 2 checks. So call this sign. So either they're both not negative, or they both are. It's probably an easier way to do that. They're both not negative, or they both are. I guess the best way would be XOR for checking, but checking if they are negative and finding if only one of them are. But I think I'll leave that like that for now. And then at the end, let's do that at the end. Say res if or sign pause equals -1. Say one string that is negative. And then I want to make sure I don't mess up my my algorithm by including the negative signs. So if j equals negative sign, if I equals negative sign, this is the one I'm concerned about. Is continue the right keyword here?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Okay. One input string is input number is negative. And I'll say I think this is all I can think of for now.
Okay. So let's talk about the time and space complexity, please.
Okay, well we're doing a simple check. This is O1. And then we want to go through string 2 once, and then for each element of string 2 we go through string 1 once. So that would be, let's say string 1 is m, string 2 is n. So this would be O of n times m. Because for each element of n, we do this m times, and these are all O of 1.
Those are all O1? Okay. Can we go through those O1 operations, and can you explain to me why they're O1?
Checking an element here.
Uh-huh.
So that's O of 1. And then
Yeah.
converting to an int from a char is O of 1.
Okay.
And then this is just elementary operations times
Okay.
and assigning a value. And then same thing here. And then finally, for each one is just an addition. So that's
Okay.
O of 1 as well.
Okay. And then the space, please.
Space complexity. I store the result in this this return, which starts off as an int and then is cast to a string. So I guess space complexity is whatever size res ends up being, which let's see, what would the maximum be here? If string 1 is I guess it would it be O n times m as well?
Okay. Okay. Can you explain the reason there?
Well, I guess the string that ends up storing, well, we store it in an int at first.
Okay.
So I guess it wouldn't be, we'd be storing this in that would, it wouldn't really be in terms of m or n, it'd be in terms of what they represent. But the final string, which would end up being storage as well, would have to be, well, in the worst case, I guess, would be, what would be the possible worst case for multiplying two strings, integers? So I guess if it was like, let's say just for the case with 2 digits, 99 times 99, and then that's pretty much the same as just around 100 times 100 is then 1,000, which is about over double the input size. So maybe the final string that we have to store would be 2 times max n m.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I can really think of.
Okay. No, I think that's a good place to start. So I'll note that down. We can come back to that later.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I want to move on to a second question. We're a bit low on time here, but I think
Yep.
we might still be able to make a little progress on that one.
Okay.
So this problem is going to be called merge intervals. Have you heard of this one before?
No.
Okay, so I'll dictate that. So we can just start at the bottom, just underneath here.
Okay.
Okay, and for this problem, it's called merge intervals, and how it's going to work is you are to implement a function, and it takes in a list of intervals. Okay, and an
Okay.
interval is defined as a pair of numbers, a start and an end. Okay, it's going to be a smaller number and then a larger number. Okay, and they're all integers. And you have a list of these. Okay, and then you're going to return a list of interval, where the list you return is the smallest set of intervals that contains all of the intervals before. Okay, so here's an example. So I'm just going with you here.
Sorry.
No worries. So here's an example, right? We have 1,
Okay.
3, 2, 6. These combine to be 1, 6, right? Because these are overlapping.
Yeah.
Okay. And 8, 10, and 15, 18 do not overlap, right? These do not overlap.
Yeah.
So they don't combine. So the output is the smallest set of intervals that encompasses all the previous intervals without any
Okay.
extras. Yeah.
So yeah, these two kind of just get combined. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Um.
I'll give you
Okay.
another restriction, which is that the intervals that are given will always be in ascending order. And ascending in this case is defined as the start of the interval. So this might be, for example, 18, but this is still
Okay.
ascending order because the first number is the smallest. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Merge intervals, and we're taking in intervals, which will be a pair of numbers. Let's just call this. Let's just call it this. And they're all integers. So for I in intervals, this will be going in ascending order. So we have our first interval, and the first value in each interval will be the lower one. So I'll say lower bound equals I dash 0, and upper bound equals I dash 1. And then I want to keep looking. I want to keep looking until the next interval has a value like that I can combine in to one
Yeah,
interval.
I mean, like you should always be looking greedily, right? Like in this case,
Yeah, because we're in ascending order.
we're in ascending order, so you should always be looking for your current for the start. You should be looking for the next one immediately.
Yeah. So um so I want to continuously.
I mean, let's think through the algorithm first, right? So,
Yeah.
you start with the first element,
Yeah.
right? And then we're gonna we have that this must be in the output. I mean, like maybe not this n number, but this pair, like the starting number must be in the output, right? It just
Yeah.
must be. Okay, so this is in the output, and then we're gonna see if we can combine this value with the next.
Hmm.
And the way we can check that is if the first dot second value is greater than or equal to the second dot first value.
Yeah.
Okay. And if that is the
Okay.
case, then we want to combine them.
So I want to be checking. I want to be checking the rest of the pairs after I.
We
Or
only
the
need
rest
we
of
only
the
need to
intervals.
we only need to check the immediate pair after I,
Okay.
right? And the reason is because, let's say, I mean, there's only two cases. Like either is part we can either expand the interval or we can't, right? If we
Yeah.
can expand the interval, then 1/6 becomes our new current interval, right?
Yeah.
If we can't expand the interval, then 2/6 becomes our current interval. So regardless if we combine them or not, our current we will always know what our current interval is that we want to combine other intervals into.
Oh, okay. I think I get it now. Thanks. So what I want to check here is if the upper bound of our current one is greater than or equal to the next lower bound.
Yeah.
Or say this one is less than or equal to upper bound.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's true, then what do we need to do?
So let's do the same thing you had before.
So
A setup with the result. So let's just have a result,
yeah,
which is an array of pairs, right? And we'll
yeah,
have a current, which is always going to be intervals the first one, right? And so we can do what you've done here. I think this is a good start. I mean, obviously in
yeah,
this case we could start with the first one onwards, right? So the lower
yeah,
bound and the upper bound are just the current. So this is the same logic as you had, right? But now we have our current interval, right?
yeah. Okay.
And you're saying, okay, well, if it is part of the current interval, what should we do with the current interval?
Then we should update the current interval.
Okay. Yes.
And make its upper bound the next one's upper bound.
Yeah.
Current dash 1, that's the upper bound,
Yep.
equals intervals I plus 1 1,
Yep.
because that'll cover the whole thing and that'll
Yes.
be in our results.
Yes.
Um
And what if in the else case?
so if they can't be combined, then we should add the current to our results and move the current to the next one and then check do the next check.
Yep.
So that would mean we would add current and then current equals of I plus 1.
Okay.
And then it'll loop again, but be checking. Our current will now be 2, 6 in our example, and then we'll be checking against 8, 10. So I guess we don't need this lower bound here.
Okay, and then after the last iteration, you'll still have a current.
Oh yes, okay. So let's think about that iteration. So we'll have 8, 10 as our thing. We see that doesn't overlap with the 15. So then the current when during our last iteration will be 15, 18. And then if that wasn't overlapping, then it still has to be a part of the results. So if it's not overlapping, where do I want to add this? Because if it is overlapping, it will have been, okay, if it was 10 to 18 instead, then it would have gone through this one and we would have made the current that, but then it still would have been the last one. So either way, I want to add the current. So where's the append? So in this case, 8, 10 and 15, 18 don't overlap. So it'll be set to the current, or 15, 18 will be set to the current. And if they did overlap, then we would have just made the current bigger but either way, the loop would be done. So either way, I need to add the current. I think that makes sense to me.
Okay, sounds good. Time and space of this merge intervals?
Okay, well, we start with our first interval, and I think I can like assume these are all O1 operations like individually. So we start with an interval, and for each interval, or we start with an interval, and then we're either going to merge it or add it to our result and move on. So we read this one once, and then we move on, or we grow it, and then we read the next one. So I think, let's say, complexity is O of n, where n is our intervals. Because we need to read each one just once and then add it to our results, or it grows. And then space complexity. So this is considering our results. It's never going to be bigger than the amount of intervals that entered. It's never gonna grow. So, but in the worst case, it'll just be the same size as the input. So this would also be O of n, I'm pretty sure.
Cool. Any other comments about this? Otherwise, we'll go to the post game interview.
I don't think so. About this one.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about it then. Let's talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, usually for these, I like to start off by asking, like, how do you feel? What do you think went well? What do you think could be improved?
I think I did better on the merge intervals question.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's more like other questions I've done.
Yeah.
But I think I just like really am bad with strings.
Okay.
And was also more nervous with this one. And
Yeah.
I should have asked more questions at the start to figure out what like we actually wanted for it.
Yeah.
I felt with merge intervals, I was able to understand what I needed to do more easily.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Let's talk about it. So, the first one, I mean, the first problem is sort of like the main problem here, right?
Yeah.
Multiply number is a problem in Leetcode, though the version that I originally gave was quite a bit more difficult than the one on Leetcode. That one I think is a bit underwhelming.
Yeah.
After I made the restriction that they're only integers, then it became equivalent, I believe, to the one on Leetcode. I'm not sure the one on Leetcode allows for negative numbers, but either way, same difference. So, a couple kind of early comments about this thing, and if this applies a bit about both problems, is that it definitely helps to vocalize your thought process early on.
Yeah.
And if you don't say anything, it kind of says two things. One thing is that either like, oh, you know what's going on, you're gonna just crank this out, or it means that like you're really lost. You don't know what's going on. You don't know the next steps, and both of those don't set you up for success. So it sort of is in your best interest to kind of like start right from the beginning, to kind of get right into it and start talking about things.
Yeah.
Now, one thing he did call out pretty early on was that the numbers could be negative, and I think that was a really good edge case detail you kind of noticed. Now, it seemed like you kind of forgot about that halfway through, so we had to remind you at the end there. So whenever you had those kind of thoughts about edge case or whatnot, you just gotta just write those down, and that might be something that you might want to just do in terms of figuring out a system for yourself. Like even when you don't do mocks, you just do regular Leetcode or whatever it may be. Like you always follow your system, and so it becomes ingrained. It's part of how you approach problems altogether. So
like when you say like talking to yourself or just like
it could be talking to yourself. I would recommend talking to yourself doesn't really work when you're nervous. I would always recommend having a format you write down whenever you approach a problem, right? So for example, this is why Leetcode isn't really good because it doesn't let you practice this. But even on Leetcode, you could still force yourself to do this, which is every time you're given a problem, the first thing you always do is you always write, like you said, take some notes about it, right? Take some notes about it. And then before you start coding, talk about the types. That's a really good thing to check, right? What are the input types? For example, the input types, right? Input string, output string. When you have these two things coming down, and this is not hard to identify, right? When you have this coming up, you just immediately ask yourself the edge cases. String edge cases, for example, are they all going to be, now this kind of question doesn't work well for this problem, but you can imagine more generally, for example, are they going to be ASCII characters? Are they going to be Unicode characters? How about uppercase, right? Numerical, right? Are they going to be spaces, leading characters, right? I mean, this because I told you all valid numbers just to make it a bit simpler, but in general, you can think about that, right? You think output string. Okay, what format do they want the string in? Are there other considerations there, right? Now, for other problems like like linked list or nodes or graphs or whatever, like this would give you some more insight, or even lists that would, like this kind of input output will give you a bit more insight. But whatever it takes, just form a system together and figure it out, right? So for example, the string is supposed to be numbers, right? Numerical. If it's a numerical problem, the immediate things you ask, what type of number is it? Can it be negative? Can it be complex, etc., right? So whenever these things come out, just automatically your mind has to come to these kind of problems, and then you can write it down, right? So numericals, right? So can be negative, right? Can be decimal. So these things you just write it down. That way you won't forget about it, right? Like these are kind of systems that you got to develop so you don't make silly mistakes, because otherwise you're just wasting your time, right? You can't afford to take mistakes in that kind of situation. All right, so otherwise I would say this is also about vocalization, is talking about your short-term goals, right? The long-term goal we understand. What's a short-term goal, right? Like what are you trying to solve right now with the line of code you're writing, right? If you're lost about certain things, that might not be, this might not be easy to vocalize, but the thing is if you can't think of short-term stepping stone goals to get to where you want to be, then you also don't know what you're writing. You're also just wasting your time. Right, so this might be, depending on the problem, the difficulty setting, it might be worth taking the time at the beginning, sit down, write it just in pseudocode or English in your comments, whatever, just write down all the steps you're going to take. And then that way, when you're writing that, when you're implementing, you can say, hey, I'm doing step 3 right now. I'm going to iterate through this second string backwards. I'm going to iterate like this, etc. So that way it gives you a bit more clarity. It helps you structure your thoughts a bit better, because otherwise you're kind of willy-nilly. You're kind of going back. You kind of start. You start at the beginning, now you're at the end, now you're back to the beginning, now you're adding if there, now you're adding if there. So there's a lot of stuff that's jumping back and forth, and it makes it confusing for you. Now here's the thing. If you're actually correct, it's not a big deal, because the interviewer knows the solution. They're just waiting for you to write it down, more or less, right? But if you're wrong, then the interviewer is also confused, because they don't know what you're trying to do. They don't know if what you're trying to do is what you should be doing, right? So that's another consideration, right? If you have low confidence in the solution, then you better take your time to write down, some of your ideas first.
Yeah, okay? Totally.
Okay, so the other thing I'll talk about this problem, honestly, I don't want to rag on this problem for too long, but this is not a great problem for Python, but it's actually a really good Python problem. 2 reasons. First of all, the reason this problem is interesting is because you're not allowed to use integers. That's sort of the entire problem. Right? Obviously, multiplication is not difficult. Everyone can do that. That's not the problem. The problem is not about multiplication. The problem is about how well do you understand the data of numbers. That is the actual problem, right? So when the problem given to you, that's something like, oh, you calculate the power of these 2 numbers. Divide these 2 numbers. The problem is not about dividing. Like, that's not the problem, okay? So you got to use a bit of your meta level understanding and say, okay, well, what are they really trying to test here? Because obviously, multiply 2 numbers is not a skill, right? So the issue here is that you seem to miss, and this is why Python made it a difficult problem, is in most languages, and you I think you correctly identified this, and I think you said C++ or something, right? The numbers are all on the stack. When you're declaring numbers in a function, like in the body function, they're all on the stack. And there's a limit to how big numbers can be on the stack. Otherwise, you go to the heap, right? In Python, every object is on the heap. There are no objects on the stack. And so in Python, there's no restriction on, for example, how big numbers can be, right? However, that's not really the test here is not like can you make a number into a string or vice versa, right? The test is can you do that without converting them back and forth, right? Why is that important? That's important because your time complexity analysis is incorrect, and it is incorrect over here. This line is not a constant time, and the reason it's not a constant time is because the size of this number is proportional to n. And only
Okay.
in Python can you get the situation where primitive multiplication is non-constant.
Why?
Because your decimal place, like how big can a number be? You tell me. You start at 1,
Um,
you multiply 10 every time, and you multiply by 10 a string 1 times, which is n. This number is
yeah,
n to the power of, is 10 to the power of n.
I see.
So it's going to have n digits, right? It's going to have n digits. So you're multiplying a number that's 1 digit by n digits, which is in digits, which is in time.
Yeah.
So that's not a constant. So that's it. So you're actually going to be n squared n. So that's the problem.
Is there a way to do this in Python?
Uh,
That's not n squared n.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like the optimal solution would have been for time would have been m times n, and then well
Oh, okay.
technically it could be better than that, but for realistic interview performance, it's n times n, and space
Yeah.
should be n plus n, which is what you sort of had there. I mean, I'll talk about space right after, but
Okay.
the key the thing that's kind of got you here is that you had some intuition, it seems, to build a solution up by digit, which is correct. But one thing you kind of didn't realize was you have like you end up having this digit variable around, which takes up like in space, right? And that's okay. It's okay to take up in space. That's not a problem. The problem is that you're going to be doing an in operation here again, and you don't benefit from that the first time around. What do I mean by that? Okay, like if you back up and think about it, our return type is a string, right? Like returning a string that represents the the answer, right?
Yeah.
But you can index strings, not directly, but think about strings as an array of characters or array of numbers instead, right?
Yeah.
Instead of doing result as a string, you could have done res as an array of digits,
Yeah. Oh.
and
Okay.
you will write your current string, which I mean again you wouldn't use a number here, you use a string here. You would write this one by one into your result array, right? So it's a bit of pseudocode. This wouldn't be actually working, right? It's a bit of pseudocode.
Okay.
You would do something like res1 at index I. That's not a real index, but just play with me here. Equals digit 2, and then you would and then your I would be incremented, right?
Oh. Okay.
So ideally you would actually do something like this, and you would have index IDX, right? This is how you would multiply it out from like ideally. And of course there's a carry, I won't do the carry here, but like this is the idea, is that you wouldn't
Yeah.
need to actually calculate the numerical multiplication. You would know implicitly where in the answer that number should rest. So that is how you would avoid needing to do the multiplication in one go and then writing it all again in one go.
Yeah. I think that makes sense now.
You can go find the problem in Leetcode and do it there again. I won't explain the algorithm here. That's not important. One more thing I wanted to comment. I'm a little bit low on time. I'll spend a bit more time on this, but one thing I also want to comment is you're very close on the excuse me, very close on the space complexity. I'm not sure if you remember, but if you have like 10 to the power of n times 10 to the power of m, that's m plus m, right? Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Like if you have 10, I'm using 10 as just a generic base, right? Times 10 to the power of m, this equals 10 to the power of m plus m, right? Hopefully that's familiar to you.
Yeah.
And so the answer here, so this is the problem essentially, right? So whatever your in is, like let's say you're in, so let's say like 1 is equals 99, like you said, right? So this would just be equals n equals 2. but because we can choose int to be whatever we want. So we say equals 2 plus 1, and we can add any constant we want, right? We can add any constant we want because that's a constant operation on a linear function. And so this is just 10 to the power of n. So this is exactly the case I just said over here, right? And so your space is going to be O n plus m plus n, same difference, right? I would say most people would expect you to get this, especially if you went through the pain of actually writing the multiplication out. I would say it's expected that you could that you would be able to find this one. I mean, like, your answer is not wrong, but it's not tight enough, so it's a bit like half marks. And then I'll spend a quick minute about merge intervals. This problem I think was pretty well done. Obviously, it did help quite a bit more, and you did struggle a little bit at the end trying to figure out how to operate with the current, the last interval. I think in general this might have been a bit of nervousness, or in general, I think what you could do to improve this, nervous or not, is working on like reading comprehension, like reading your source code, understanding what is going on, right? Oftentimes, especially if you're nervous, you're writing a lot of stuff based on patterns and memory, and you might not understand everything that's going on. So a good way to practice this actually is to go to Leetcode problems that you're like sort of familiar with, go to the solutions tab, and read through everybody's solution, right? And the goal there isn't really to necessarily understand why their solution is their solution, but your goal should just be to read it and understand why it works, and just move on. That's a really important skill that you need to practice. And honestly, reading other people's code is about as effective as reading your own. So for Leetcode, that's a really good thing to spend some time and practice on, because you really don't want to be caught. Don't want to be caught with a working solution. It's almost working. It's basically there, and you fumble on one of the last steps, because that kind of removes a lot of confidence from the interviewer. Now they're doubting if you're right because it's coincidence. Like, you don't even know if you should add this or not. Like, how do I know if you're doing this by coincidence, right? So like, that's a really, really important part to not fumble, especially when you're at the end just trying to run through it. So that could be something that you can just practice as well. Just reading code, understanding what's going on. Totally. Okay. Any questions from your side? I think you cut out there.
Yeah, I guess, like, what would you say, like, is the most effective way to practice like these type of questions, just to be ready? Like, I get like the writing down everything as you do them, um, but just to be like ready for interviews more so.
There's a lot of different ways to practice that. I mean, I would say, today's performance, it's hard to just judge based on one performance. I would say in general, there's kind of two things to tackle simultaneously, right? Like, one side is just technical skill. So that, in this context, what that means is just going through somewhere and knocking out a problem quickly. Like, being able to just get to the answer, figure out in your head very quickly what it is, and then having the skill to execute and implement it. That's like a technical skill, right? So that's something you could always work on. The best work on that, I'd say, is going through something like Neatcode 150, just one of those lists. Practice. Don't practice too quickly. Slow down, actually understand the problems, but get through the topics there, right? And secondly, what I said earlier today was about the actual interview style, right? Like, know what notes you need to take, know what edge cases always trip you up, right? Know how to talk while coding, know how to vocalize your short-term goals, long-term goals, where are you right now, what step are you doing, that kind of thing. Strategy kind of idea, right?
Yeah.
In terms
I
of
feel like
that, you could go ahead.
the short-term goal and long-term goal is like a really good thing to point out. I feel like that would help a lot.
Yes, that's something which, whether or not you realize it or not, that's what everyone's doing, right? So
Yeah.
if you can vocalize it, that helps the interviewer understand what you're trying to accomplish, which is really important.
Totally.
It's really important if you don't get the correct answer. Like, if you get the correct answer, no one really cares. Like, okay, cool. If you get the wrong answer, then that's all that matters, because now I have nothing to judge you on. Like, it's just wrong.
Yeah.
Like, what can I say? So, otherwise, practicing that, practice it by yourself. Just talk to yourself, right? See what's going on. You can get some friends to do mock interviews with. The key note is that your friends don't need to be competent. They just need to know how to ask you in English. That's it. And then otherwise, I would say it's a balance between the two. It's a balance between getting good technical skill and getting good interview strategy. So don't just focus on one. You have to keep them roughly balanced. That's all.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. All right, take care.
You too.
All right, went a bit overtime there. Went a bit overtime there, but we'll get to the resume reviews now. So, resume reviews. Where's my spreadsheet? Oh, actually, before I do that, let me just copy this in. Okay, so that should be this over here. So let me put that in the link. Submit resume. Yeah, that should be right. Pin. Submit resume. Boom. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Have there been any submissions? Where are we? Here we are. Usually you need to give it a minute or two. Let me see. I think there was one on Discord that I saw. Might look at first. Resume review. Resume. Who is this? What is this? Why is there so much yapping in this channel? That okay? Looks like they got help. That guy got help. This guy, I think, got help. Yeah, that guy got help. Let me put just a comment on screen. Submit resume by form in pinned comment. That guy got help. This guy did not get help. Okay, I can look at this guy then. All right. So while we wait, I'll just do this, guys. Okay, so this guy's comment is expect grad in May 2026. From now until then, I'm still looking for internship, or I might continue my study, then apply for new grad positions later. Feel free to drop a comment on things that should improve. Thanks. Okay, so they didn't really say what kind of role they're going for, but we can still have a look here. Let's do green today. I'm feeling green. All right. Stuff going on. Software engineer in Vietnam. Intern in Vietnam. Open source OCR, integrating ELT concepts. ELT pipeline. I see it both as, I see ETL more common, but I don't think it really matters. Set deployment cycles, building and obtaining dark images. Okay. Streamline data storage. Streamline data storage retrieval, designing and maintaining schemas, updating the queries. Definitely want to see more detail in this one, right? First of all, like quantitatively, what changed, what's improved, and also a bit more about how. I mean, designing and managing schemas is fairly. I mean, that's kind of watery, no? Optimizing queries, I think, is good. Like, if you could talk about what queries, like how did you optimize queries, I think that would be pretty cool. Agile team stuff. I mean, you gotta put something there, right? All right, fair enough. Develop phone verification, function for organization, validate users. Does Firebase SMS, auth. Oh, present. Oh, so you're going down. Okay, I see. With free tier plan, we optimize the budget for the NGO. I feel like the English is a bit off. No, you probably polish that up a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I feel like I think you just forgot to finish the sentence, to be honest. Okay, whatever. Excuse me. Blah blah. Demo link. Love to see that. Okay. Is this a hackathon project? What is this? Edu Recruiter. Let's see. Okay. And the role-based access control. I like that. I think this makes sense. Okay. Full stack app. Okay. ML food waste management recognition. 80% accuracy. Okay. Like 80% accuracy, I can accept for like a hackathon, right? I think once a hackathon, you should label it as such. 80% accuracy elsewhere, I don't know, man. That feels a bit low, even for a project. Smart deck. Full stack application leverage. The flashcard helps students study. Review key. Okay. Include code reliability. I don't know. I'm not really bought up on unit tests for projects personally. I think you should definitely talk about it, but like maybe as like, as a skill, not as like a bullet point. I think there could be more to be done in that regard, in terms of like just bringing out some more like in-depth projects, because all the stuff here feels more like school projects or hackathons, and there's nothing wrong with those, of course, but it just feels a bit shallow. All right. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, we have a submission here. Why is this warning me? What is it warning me of? That's useless. Okay. All right. All right, this guy's comment. A guy from 2 weeks ago who asked you if a jump from safe to meta for Sweet is possible. I honestly don't remember that conversation. I'm looking for anything other than front end or full stack Sweet. Anything other than front end or full stack, but I will really take anything. Also, to not waste your time, most of the stuff is the same, except there's less bolding. It's too much. In my experience on the ongoing internship, I was wondering, do you reckon I have a genuine shot landing interview at places like Amazon, Microsoft, or Asana, since they're van based for this resume? Once again, thank you so much for the help. Okay, a couple of questions here. Less bolding. Yeah, bolding here is acceptable. Experience for ongoing internship. Okay, let's have a look. What is that? That's over here. Okay. Backend, I like benchmarks. Those are good. Background tasks. Celery. Okay. Celery. From inline to celery. Okay. Automated 8+ hours when extraction. Gemini shot to it. Okay. Okay, cool. I don't know what the SHA-256 base cache is supposed to mean. You can just say cache. It's fine. Reverse merge production time 5 minutes and look it up. Okay, I think that's good. I think these are pretty solid points. It does feel like in some ways a bit more DevOpsy, but I think this is pretty good. Like a lot of backend focus. Makes sense. Do you reckon have a genuine shot at landing interviews, Amazon, Microsoft, Asana? Yeah, for sure. I mean, like landing interviews, the interview bar is lower than you think. To be honest, it's past the interview that is harder, because the difficulty of questions they ask is comparable to honestly really any kind of question, like any kind of regular big company, but the ways they evaluate and judge you is a lot more different. But like getting an interview, yeah, for sure, you can definitely get an interview there. I don't see a problem with this resume. I think that's gonna be fine for that kind of thing. So yeah, I think you're good to go. I think at least for Microsoft and definitely Amazon, the OA part is really the determining factor for the interview. All right, let's look at this guy. Oops. Okay, so this guy's comment is grad at May 2026, finishing internship in the summer now. Got one line up for this fall as Sweet, trying to look for Sweet ML engineering roles, but I have more experience as Sweet. Looking for Sweet or ML engineering. One line up for fall as Sweet. Do you have it written here? Let's see. No, you don't have it written here yet. Okay. Okay, that's fine. And then let me see what else about you. Nope, looks pretty normal. Okay. Sweet or ML engineering roles. ML engineering is a completely different discipline. So, I mean, do I see ML here? What school is this? Okay, I see. I would split that out. Assembly Racket Prolog. I would split that out. Some stuff. PyTorch, TensorFlow, Scikit, NumPy. That's lowercase p. Pinecone and data and ML. I guess it is a database technically. Okay. All right. I would probably also not use custom formatting for this kind of stuff. Like, just use commas. Don't be fancy. Okay. Deciding to implement a new version history feature, REST API design principles, unit test, integration tests, extend functionality for 1+1,000,000 weekly users, owning end-to-end delivery, design backfill, 30 plus stacks, 0 downtime rollout, 91% error budget burn. Okay. So, May, June, July. It's 3 months for finish. You have 1 month to go. These 2 points are not adequate to describe what's going on here. Like, if this was May, understandable. Right? Present tense for these two, understandable. Right now, there is no information here. Right? Like, if you think about it, if you didn't have the word big tech here, what am I supposed to evaluate this on? You're currently doing something, but it's not done. You're currently doing this, but there's no, I mean, presumably you aren't at the backfill part yet. There is no metrics to go off of at all. And I'm just supposed to just take your word that you're doing REST API design principles well. I don't know, can I? If you're 3 out of 4 months in, you got to have better points on this, right? I want to see things that I mean, yes, you can still use present tense for things you haven't done, or you're still going through, but there's got to be some past tense, or there's got to be things that you say, this has already been done. We're at this stage. We've done this. Here's the success metric for things that have been accomplished, etc. So you gotta have that in there, because right now these things don't mean anything, right? Like less than 1% error burn budget makes sense. That's good. That's good to have. But like are you at 0%? Are you at 3%? There's like aiming for that hasn't been done yet. Like how am I supposed to know like if you're good or not, right? 30 plus stacks. Stacks in this case is ambiguous. I think I know what you're talking about, so I know what it is. But for an average, even for average engineer, they would be confused what you mean by stacks. And if you're talking about a hiring manager, this is so gone. This is just completely gone. So I will completely rephrase this. And the second thing about this, second thing about the other point is, I think, this first point is probably doing too much. Like it's probably you're probably trying to say too many things. So for example, the thing in the bracket here is completely useless. For example, let's say you're using REST API, like design principles, that's just random adjectives, right? Just get out of that. Using REST API makes sense. Not many other things you can use, but okay, sure, you can put it in there. Unit test, integration test. I think this is not really worth putting in here. If you really want to talk about how good you are writing tests, I would either put that as a point over here, or beside it here, so you have your company name, put your team name, and then put like your tech stack. And in your tech stack, you can talk about how good you are with Selenium, with JUnit, whatever you're using, right? This kind of stuff is not really worth putting in a point. And this, and like I promised, the second thing I want to talk about for this point, 1+1,000,000 weekly users. This is a thing which I think you gotta just be aware of the quantification, right? Like you're saying 1+1,000,000 weekly users, it's supposed to be a big number. However, if you're at big tech and you're counting on 1+1,000,000 weekly users to be a big number, like you gotta make sure it's actually an impressive number. Why is that? Because you're an intern, you're an engineering intern, you have nothing to do with the product, right? Someone else decided that we're gonna make this product and your job is to make it, right? So if you're trying to use the 1 million weekly users to justify how good you are, you gotta say how you caused it, how you influenced that. Otherwise, this number is obviously going to be big, because if it wasn't big, you wouldn't do it. Like they wouldn't give you the money to do it, right? So it's a bit of a perspective thing there, right? And also, you gotta keep in mind, when people think of version history features, what do they think of? They think of Git, maybe think of Mercurial, whatever it is, right? Maybe think of their IDE kind of thing going on, right? So they'd be comparing 1 million weekly users to the things that they have in their head. I can guarantee you GitHub has more than 1 million weekly users, right? So if that's your only point of comparison, then this might not look the way you think. So just be aware of that whenever you're doing numbers. Rest of the stuff, blah blah, don't care, blah, don't care, don't care. Okay, so I'd say Sui, yeah, definitely. There's definitely some stuff here for Sui. Um, ML wise, I think there's probably a little bit more to go. I mean, the thing is I think if you want to go ML, you probably want to make some pretty competitive ML projects. Yes, I did see this. I'm not gonna click the link obviously, but if someone clicks that link, that like this is the only ML you have on the resume. Okay, this is the only ML you have on the resume. You have some stuff over here, but this is a well, this is I wouldn't know if you call this ML, frankly, right? Like this is just regular backend, and then you taught some students stuff. If you're talking about this kind of stuff, RA one project, it's not the focus of the Sui resume. I would say if you really got stuff here, make a ML focused resume and make a Sui focused resume. Okay, that way you can that way you don't have to step on each other's toes, right? That way you can really expand on what's going on here. For example, oh, this is a startup. Is it actually a startup? Like what is it, right? So that could be something that you really want to focus on, that you really want to, you just bring up a little bit more. Otherwise, I don't think this resume will see too much stuff in the ML cycle right now. It's pretty competitive right now in the ML in the entire ML world. So make a separate one for that one if you want to give a shot. Okay, let's see what else. Any comments? No comments. Nice. Nice. Okay, next resume. Oh, that's all. All right, well then I'll give people like 2 minutes to submit, and then if they there's no more resumes, I'm gonna call it here. All right, let's see what's in the spreadsheet. Oh, I just scrolled all the way down. Oops. Okay, there's one. There is one. And bruh. I swear to fucking God. Is this leaking information? Let me take a look. No, alright. Guys. Gonna fucking lose it, okay? Guys. I'm looking at this guy's submission. Actually, let me just do this real quick. Where is it? Where is this guy's submission? Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. go-to tab. Review form. Response sheets. I'm looking at this guy's row. Okay. They're from somewhere else, and they have checked this button over here. The yes, I have. They have checked it. This is a mandatory question, guys. This is a mandatory question, and they have checked it. Okay? And I am looking at their submission right now, and I can see their name. I can see their email. I can see their phone number, and their LinkedIn, and their GitHub. It's just right at the top of the resume. Guys, what's going on? Like, are we illiterate? Also, for this problem, don't be lazy and explain what you're trying to accomplish with this resume. They have written, hey, don't know. So, needless to say, I won't be reviewing that. All right, that's all. Take care.